Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Growing Your Food Business from Home. I'm Rebecca Chauncey, a business advisor here at the Illinois Small Business Development Center, or SBDC, at Build Bronzeville. So happy to have you with us. This training is brought to you at no cost because it's funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the United States Small Business Administration, or the USSBA, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, and Urban Juncture Foundation. Please note a couple of housekeeping notes. If you have questions today, you should type them in the Q&A section, which you will see if you move your mouse to the bottom of your screen and type any questions you have there. The questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. And if you don't have an opportunity to type right now, hopefully you can just remember your question, and there will also be time for you to raise your hand, and we will allow you to ask questions aloud at the end of the presentation. Also, you should know that, as you heard, this will be recorded, and yes, you will receive the link to the recording at the end of or once I send the follow-up training and survey email. So let me introduce you to today's presenter. Mary Liz Wright is passionate about improving the lives of the people of Illinois, be it through her blog, Be Smart, Eat Well, Get Healthy, in-person programs or webinars, or on YouTube, What's Cooking with Mary Liz Wright. She hopes people gain life-changing knowledge about food safety, food preservation, chronic disease, and basic nutrition. Sharing research-based information from the University of Illinois enables her to help people make good lifestyle choices that, in turn, make their lives better. She believes that people who eat well do better in school, perform better in the workplace, and are contributing members of their communities. Wright earned a bachelor's degree in theology from Loyola University of Chicago and a master's degree in family and consumer science from Eastern Illinois University. She is currently a member of the National and Illinois Extension Association of Family and Consumer Science. Without further ado, I am pleased to pass the mic over, if you will, to Mary Liz Wright.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and I'm certainly glad to be here. Rebecca and I were chatting a few minutes ago, and I said I'm always excited to talk with folks about their ideas for entrepreneurship and creating foods in their home to be sold to the public. And that's why you've joined us today. I'm going to shut my video off, and then, as Rebecca said, I would be absolutely delighted to answer any questions at the end. All right, so here we are with a cottage food update. And I just wanted to acknowledge some of my partners that I usually work with in this subject. Justin Dwyer, who is with the Peoria City County Health Department, has been very instrumental in the cottage food movement in Illinois, as has been the Illinois Farmers Market Association. And then my close colleague, Jenna Smith, who serves the counties of Livingston, McLean, and Woodford. And you can see there by my name, I serve predominantly Clark, Crawford, and Edgar counties, which are a couple hundred miles south of you on the eastern border of Illinois. As I said, I come from the University of Illinois, and that is our land-grant university here in the state of Illinois. And I share with you and with all 102 counties in our great state the research-based information that comes from the land-grant university system. So, sometimes I jokingly say, I don't make this stuff up. And of course we don't, but the land-grant university system is offering research-based excellent information. So just to give you a little clarification on that. And then as a land-grant university, the University of Illinois acknowledges that it now sits on lands once occupied by the peoples of the Peoria, Kaskaskia, Piankashaw, Wea, Miami, Mascoutin, Odawa, Sauk, Muskogee, Kickapoo, Potawatomi, Ojibwa, and Chickasaw nations. And not only is it necessary, but it is my privilege to acknowledge these Native nations and for us to work with them as we move forward as an institution. All right, so we're here to talk about cottage food. Well, why does it matter? Because before our cottage food law came into existence, if you wanted to create food in your home and sell it to the public, you really couldn't. There was myriad red tape. There were lots of expenses. You had to create a commercial kitchen, or you had to go find a commercial kitchen. And so thankfully, now, several years ago, in 2012, Illinois adapted a cottage food law. And so just to highlight this slide shows you that the law itself has gone through a few iterations, making it better, more both producer and consumer friendly in the process. And we can note that most recently, in 2022, the cottage food law was greatly expanded. And so in 2012, it was a very short list of what you could sell. And then it was expanded in 2018 to include a few other products. But now, in this most recent version, called the Home to Market Law, there was a standardized registration process. We'll talk about that. It expanded the point of sale to really anywhere. It allows online sales, and it includes some clarification on acidified or fermented foods. So just to illustrate what is a cottage food operation, this is a snapshot of the actual verbiage of the law, of the Illinois law, and it says exactly what it is. A cottage food operation is the ability to create food or drink in your cottage, in your home, and sell it to the public. Now you'll notice that it says this kitchen is located in that person's primary domestic residence or another appropriately designed and equipped kitchen on a farm. Now, the reason that that on a farm line was added is because sometimes people with orchards or large gardens or farms would like to create food right there where the food is grown, and that's allowed. That's the only stipulation. If you don't have your own farm products going into your cottage food, you cannot remodel your garage, for example, and make that your cottage food prep area. If you want to do that, then it becomes a commercial kitchen. Because going back to this original statement, cottage food is in your cottage, in your home kitchen. All right, so hopefully that sounds great, and you might like to know how do you get started on this journey? Well, the first thing you need to do is to take an ANSI, an American National Standards Institute approved Certified Food Protection Manager's course. I know that's a mouthful. This is the exact exam and course that restaurant managers are required to take. So you do that. Then you register with your local health department. You fill out the application, list what food you intend to sell, and pay a fee. This fee is capped at $50. You have to do that annually. All right, so back to these ANSI courses. Where can you get the course? What is it exactly? Well, a few different organizations offer it. And at Extension, we teach the National Registry, or you might be familiar with ServeSafe. And these courses are offered at Extension offices, at community colleges, at health departments. There are some private individuals who also offer these courses. But look around. I know that in my area, we have a local community college who about every other year will offer this course free of charge. So look into that. It can be an investment, or you might be able to find a free alternative. And just know that once you have taken this course, it's good for 5 years. So you don't have to do that annually. you do have to register with your local health department annually. And this is a fairly simple process. A couple things that I want to remind you of before you do this. First of all, you have to have your certification that says you have passed that ANSI course. Do not contact your health department until after you have passed that exam. Just know that health departments are really busy. Cottage food is certainly not the only thing that they do. And so you're going to want to contact them well in advance of farmers market season, or whenever you intend to sell. But just know, allow them at least a couple of weeks, even a month, to get back with you. And so when you register, many of the health departments will have these forms online. And so if you could print them off or fill them out online before you contact them, that's also good and will speed up the process. So this is just a generic one. Your county might look a little different. Now, that being said, you only have to register in the county where you reside. So if most of you live in Cook County, you're going to register with your local health department. There's several sites within the city of Chicago. And so you can do that, but then you can also sell in whatever county in Illinois you want to. So you can sell in Will and Grundy and Kane and anything, any of those counties, as long as you are registered. Now, also that being said, and I'm going to give you a QR code at the end that will take you to our website that has a link on it to the Chicago Public Health Department. There are a couple of special regulations that Chicago requires in addition to what other counties require. So anyway, just in general, the health department's going to ask you for your name, basic name, address, email. How are they going to contact you? They also want to know your food protection manager's ID number. So that's the number on your certificate. They're going to want to know, what do you intend to sell? And this is because, not because they just want to be nosy, but they need to know this in order to see if they're going to need to ask you to do anything additional. And so we'll get into this when I show you the prohibited foods list. And there are certain things that kind of fall on the borderline. And so the health department might ask you to apply for a variance. So just a simple example would be, if you're selling bread and you want to put some dry cheese on top. So you'll notice when we get to the prohibited foods list, dairy is not allowed as a cottage food. But if you work with your local health department, they might say, oh, that's Parmesan cheese. It's dry. You're just putting a little bit on the top of your bread. You're baking it. We think that that's safe. We're going to allow you to do that one particular thing. So under that list of items you intend to sell, be broad. Think beyond, just one or two things, because you can amend this license as the year goes on, but it's a lot easier for the health department if you list every possibility when you first apply. All right, and so here's the other addition to the 2022 edition of the law. Where you can sell has been wide open. So you can sell to anyone, anywhere, as long as it is direct to the consumer. Now, what that means is you cannot sell your food item to a restaurant or a grocery store that then is in turn going to sell it to someone else. You have to sell it direct to the consumer. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, type that question in. And so it also allows online sales within the state of Illinois. And of course, the foods have to be non-hazardous. All right. So again, what can you sell? Well, any food or drink not on the prohibited foods list. Well, what is prohibited? Here's the list. I'm not going to read them out loud to you, but the top three are fairly expected. However, you're probably saying, but I've seen those things sold at a farmer's market. And you have, but it is a totally separate licensing procedure. That is not cottage food. The rest of the things that you see are pretty much classic, what we tend to avoid at a church picnic, or things that have been associated with national foodborne illness outbreaks, like the Sprouts. You probably remember the sandwich chain that sold Sprouts that made people sick. And so this is a fairly broad list of things that could possibly make you sick, only because they've been associated with other foodborne illness outbreaks. Some of it doesn't make any sense, really, when you think about it. Well, you can't sell cut leafy greens unless they've been dehydrated, acidified, or blanched. But you also cannot sell cut tomato or melons, or dehydrated tomato or melon, or frozen cut melon. And you can see that sounds kind of silly, because if you're going to be prepping other things, why couldn't you prep that in your home kitchen? Well, simply because at one point in our fairly recent history, those items made people sick. The state of Illinois just wants to avoid those types of things. And then wild harvested mushrooms, alcoholic beverages, or kombucha also are not allowed. Now, speaking of kombucha, or alcoholic drinks, they're not permitted. You can, however, make homemade beverages packaged in sealed containers. So this is a little confusing as well. If you want to sell, let's say, coffee or some sort of fruit drink that you are preparing on site, let's say you're at a festival or a farmer's market, and you want to prepare coffee, for example, you cannot prepare it on site and call yourself cottage food. Because remember, let's scroll back to what was that definition of a cottage food? Made in your cottage, right? So if you're making it on site, you now become a concession stand. That's a temporary food permit that you'll have to work out with your local health department. But if you want to make drinks at home, bottle them in your home and sell them either chilled, keeping them at 41 degrees or below, or shelf stable, meaning you have canned them, you have processed them in a boiling water bath canner and rendered them shelf stable, then you are allowed to do that as long as you bring it already prepared to the site where you're going to be selling people things. This chart just gives you some of the common questions that we've had. So homemade condiments, sure. Tomato basil spaghetti sauce, yes. Spaghetti sauce is kind of tricky though, because it must not contain any of those prohibited ingredients. So no cut leafy greens, no dairy, no meat. Product with alcohol used as flavoring, yes, as long as it's less than 5% by volume. Canned corn, no, unless sufficient acid has been added, like a corn relish. Pumpkin butter, no, and pepper jelly, no, unless they have been proven to be more acidic with a pH of 4.6 or lower. And then I put a column there that says extracts, and that's because a couple of years ago, and actually even last year, was really popular to want to sell homemade extracts out of your home. And so we work with a statewide committee and developed the Cottage Food Guide. And while we were developing that, we were working with the Illinois Department of Public Health and other entities like Extension in answering some of these questions. And we were a little confused about extracts because you probably know that you make, for example, vanilla extract by putting a vanilla bean in vodka. And so we were concerned because it says no alcohol. So we asked the Illinois Liquor Commission officer, about that. And he kind of laughed at us and said, seriously, people, I've got bigger things to worry about than that. Let them sell the extracts. I don't care as long as people aren't drinking it. So anyway, that's how we developed that answer. This chart just shows you that there are lots of things, lots of different regulations, cottage food only being one of those that are regulated for sale of food products in the state of Illinois. And so, like I said, you're gonna work with your local health department. And what I want to say loudly and clearly is that your local health department is not your enemy. They're not the police. They're not out to get you. They want to work with you. And so make them your partner. So like I was talking about the bread that might have a little cheese incorporated, baked into it. That's something that you can work with your local health department on and ask for a variance. Another common question we get is about buttercream icing. And the answer is yes. Yippee, this one was hard to convince, but we're there. I said something about acidified foods being allowed for sale. And what we're talking about are canned foods, foods that have been processed, or those cut leafy greens that you would like to sell, but again, on that prohibited foods list, you're not allowed to unless they're acidified. So to acidify something means to add specific amounts of acid, be it vinegar, citric acid, or bottled lemon juice. We also strongly recommend, strongly urge, I would like to be able to require, but cannot, you to use a recipe from the USDA or any cooperative extension service. And that's because, like I said at the beginning, these are research-based, proven safe. That's where we get our good information and our good recipes. So what are we talking about when we're talking about acidified or fermented foods? And so tomatoes, pickles, sauerkraut, kimchi, even chilled coleslaw, those are all acidified or fermented. How can you sell them? And so, like I said, please use a tested recipe. If you insist on using your own recipe, something that you have made up, what your health department is going to ask you to do is to write a food safety plan. And I've got an example of one here in just a minute. And you have to submit that plan every year. And then you're going to have your product tested every 3 years for each category. You're also going to, you're going to be asked to work very closely with your health department on this. And it's a food safety stipulation, because I know that, no one wants to make people sick, and we want to just ensure that every step of the way we are taking all the precautions necessary. So for example, when you are selling canned tomatoes or any canned tomato product, again, I will just be real honest with you. Everybody wants to make salsa. Salsa keeps me up at night. Salsa can be a very dangerous product because many of the ingredients in salsa are very low acid. And so how do we acidify tomato products? Well, we do it with lemon juice or citric acid. And that is required whether you're canning tomatoes for your home use or for sale as cottage food. I said you might be asked to present a food safety plan. And that sounds a little daunting until you actually look and see what they're requiring. Really, what they want to know is, what do you intend to do? And how do you intend to do it? They might stop and ask you, well, what is something that could go wrong in step 3 or 4? And then they were going to want to ask you to explain that and how you could rectify that problem and how you intend to protect the public for which you intend to sell these foods. Home canned foods are allowed. So since its inception, you've been allowed to sell jams and jellies. And those are, safe foods. Fruit is naturally high in acid. And so it is really a very little food safety concern. But when we're doing these home canned foods that are high in acid, They must be processed using the boiling water bath method. You must use mason-style jars or a safe one-time use bottle, either with the two-piece standard lids that we see in canning or something known as a woozy lid that people use for hot sauces and barbecue sauce. Jars and receptacles must be sterilized for foods that are processed for less than 10 minutes. Two methods of canning. Any food sold in a canned form or shelf-stable form as a cottage food must be processed in a boiling water bath, and that method is only used for high-acid foods. But I will tell you that foods that are fermented, right now there's a huge body of evidence about how beneficial fermented foods are to our digestive systems. And once you have canned those products, so your sauerkraut, your crock pickles, your kimchi, some of the benefits of that fermentation are lost in the canning process. Canning does kill all the bacteria, and it's those good guy bacteria that we want. And so my recommendation is if you want to sell pickles, sauerkraut, or kimchi, you do so in a chilled state. We also include a little slide here about pressure canning. Those foods are not allowed in a cottage food business, so no low acid food, no vegetables, no meat, poultry, fish, seafood, combination foods are not allowed to be sold because of botulism, which is a deadly toxin that is associated with home canned foods. Very serious business here. All right, I mentioned that your health department might ask you if you're wanting to make up your own recipe. Again, we recommend that you use a recipe from USDA or any extension service. But if you want to use your own, they're going to ask you to send your product to a commercial lab for testing. All of these labs are very friendly to small producers and charge a nominal fee. You can find these on our website. In addition to selling the shelf-stable canned foods, you can also sell frozen foods. And the good news here is that you do not have to invest in a mechanical refrigeration system. Any hard-sided, easily cleaned cooler that you can maintain at 41 degrees or lower can be used. Labeling requirements. So this is required on every product that has more than one ingredient. We have samples of this on our website as well, but just know you're going to have your name and the county of your operation, common name of the food product, the date it was processed, your registration number that the health department gave you, and a phrase. This product was produced in a home kitchen, not subject to public health inspection, that may also process common food allergens. If you have food safety concerns, contact your local health department. And then you're going to list all of the ingredients, in addition to listing the common allergens separately. Here is a sample of what a food label looks like. One common question we get is, well, do I have to list the ingredients within my ingredients? Like, for example, the flour here. Yes. And that's because, some people might be allergic to some components of those items. In addition to the disclaimer on the product itself, at your point of sale, you also need a placard. It needs to be at least 8.5 by 11 that says your product was produced in a home kitchen that may also process common food allergens. Even if you're selling online, this statement must be at the point of sale. All right, and so we like to give out samples. That's what encourages people to buy things, right? And so if you want to prepare those samples on site, then you are required to get a food product sampling certificate through the IDPH, and we have the link to do that on our website as well. Or you can prepare samples again in your home kitchen where you prepare the product, package it separately, and then you do not need a sampling certificate to do that. So this just gives you a little bit more information about how to get that food sampling certificate. You'll note over here, there is a rendering of a hand washing station. If you want to prepare your food samples on site, your health department is going to require that you set one of these up. Not really very hard, and you can also share it with your neighbor if you're at a festival or a fair. Just make sure that you're able to have a free flow of water. It can't be the kind of cooler that you have to push in to get the water out. It has to be a little switch so you can wash your hands underneath it. All right, and so just kind of in summary, you have to be registered. You have to have that ANSI test. You have to pay a fee. And the city of Chicago also has additional certification. And just know that by registering as a cottage food, the health department will not inspect your kitchen unless there has been a complaint. And so that little statement that you put on every label of every item you intend to sell tells people if they have a concern, they need to contact the local health department. If they do that, they're going to be able to give the health department your registration number. And when you registered, you gave the health department permission to come to your house in case of a complaint. And that would be the only time they would come to your house for an inspection. If you're interested in more information, we do have an online self-paced course. It only costs $25. It takes you through several scenarios. It gives you access to all sorts of information. And we consider it a very comprehensive course. It's very popular. People do seem to gain benefit from it. And here is the QR code that will take you to our website. And on the website it has several layers of information. It also has both my contact information and my colleague Jenna Smith's information. We are absolutely delighted to help people on their journey. I really like hearing people's stories and how they came to the idea of setting up a cottage food business. So please feel free to contact us directly. Also on our website is a link to the Illinois Cottage Food Guide. Like I said, it was a very comprehensive panel from across the state that worked on this, and it is really a go-to handy resource for most of your questions. As is the Farmers Market Food Safety Guide. The same committee created this, and it is, again, very comprehensive, and most people find it very helpful. Now, speaking of helpful, just to let you know, there is an Illinois Cottage Food Entrepreneurs Facebook group, which is great. However, just know that it is like any group forum. Just know that anyone can post on there. And so if you pose a question and you toss it out to this group, you're going to get feedback, but just kind of double check some of that feedback that you get. There can be some really well-intentioned folks who want to be helpful, but they're not quite up to speed on the most food safe information, and you just might want to double check with either myself, my colleague Jenna, or your local health department on some of those answers. All right, and so Rebecca, I think I will stop sharing there, and I'll turn my video on, and I would love to entertain questions.
Okay, thanks so much for the amazing information and details. Please remember, everyone, I don't see any questions yet, but this is your opportunity to type any questions you have. We are
Or raise your
officially in the
hand.
Q&A section. Yes,
Yeah.
type them in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand and I will give you access to unmute yourself and say your question
So while
aloud.
you're thinking about your questions, Rebecca did share with me before we began that there were a few caterers on the call. And just to let you know, as a caterer, you have a different license. So you are under a commercial license. And so therefore you're not considered cottage food. If you wanted to develop a cottage food business, you would have to prepare the food not in your catering commercial kitchen. It would have to be in your cottage, in your home kitchen. I know that sounds kind of silly, but you can also sell things just as a caterer, and you wouldn't have the prohibitions that we have on the cottage food list itself.
All right, here we have a question, and then I
Okay,
also have a question. I'll
sure.
ask it after this one.
Mhm.
In one of the slides, you mentioned that the cottage license could be used for festivals. When
Yes.
applying for special event licenses, how does one represent that in the application?
Okay, and that would be something you would work out with your local health department. And if you're from Chicago, there are strict rules. So for example, there are some farmers markets in the city of Chicago that do not allow cottage food at all. And so that would be a local interpretation. So if, again, if you are wanting to sell outside of the city of Chicago or outside of Cook County, then you would be able to use your cottage food certificate that you acquire in Cook County to sell things at a festival, say, for example, in Will County. It's just kind of a different beast, you know. Chicago's special, and I love Chicago. I did spend some time there, as you can tell by my bio. But they are a little bit more strict than most of the other counties.
Okay, and then, so my question is, thank you for addressing that.
Mhm.
First question, Mary Liz, my question is, are there any Chicago area commercial labs for testing foods?
There are,
Okay.
I believe there's one in a suburb. The one who actually contacted us and heard about, you know, our website and wanted to be included was a lab out of Decatur, and they were so nice, and they really want to help people. So, you know, I know that would be a little bit of a drive, but they were just super nice.
Okay. Would you recommend that one either look at the University of Illinois Extension website that you noted
Right, and
for those
they're all
Chicago
listed.
options,
Yeah,
or
they're all listed
do a
on
Google
there.
search? Okay.
Yep, yeah.
All
So
right.
just that QR code, and it takes you to our website, and then on the drop down, you'll see commercial labs.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then we have another question. Do you know what requirements we need to have to sell baked goods in Chicago? This person has an ANSI Serve Safe Business Manager certification.
Very good. Well, then you would just need to register at your local health department. And I pulled up before before I started, I pulled up on my other screen the Chicago food operations limitations. So to register is and this is on our website as well. So it was the Chicago Department of Public Health Food Protection Program, and complete a cottage food application. And that should be all you would need to do. Baked goods are one of the safest things that you can sell. And I cannot imagine there being any problem with it. The only stipulation could be if you're wanting to just sell from your out of your house, like not take your baked goods to a farmer's market, or not take them to a festival, and just sell them. You know, people come to your house to buy your cakes or cookies or whatnot. There are some municipalities that have very strict zoning laws that you can't like run a business out of your home. That would be the only stipulation, and you would have to check, like, I don't know whether it would be within your neighborhood or you know, I don't know if they're zoned differently in Chicago. But that's a question for your health department.
Thank you. So the next question is, can you put up the QR code again, please? And can you show that slide?
Okay.
Just a reminder that when you receive the follow-up email of the request to complete a survey about today's training, you will get a recording link of the video of this training, as well as sounds like because there's a number of slides that could be beneficial, I'll share a PDF of this
There you go.
training as well.
Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions before we close for the day? We appreciate all of the questions that have been shared thus far. Okay, we do have another question.
Okay, good.
When growing fruits and veggies, how do we determine if it is organic or conventional? Is that something we should specify?
Okay, when you're selling your fruits or vegetables, the organic certification process is very lengthy and somewhat arduous. So you can't be certified organic unless you go through a pretty big process. You can put a little sign by them that says grown without using any chemicals, something like that. And to sell raw agricultural products, so to sell the fruits and vegetables from your garden, you do not have to be a cottage food producer. You're just selling them out of your garden. You don't have to have the food protection license or anything like that.
Really? That's interesting.
Unless you get, like your big operation and your gross receipts of sales. I don't even remember what it is, but it's pretty big. And then they're going to want you to register with like the Department of Ag. But that's not cottage food.
Okay. Wow, thank you.
Or honey. You can sell 500 gallons of honey and not have any regulations. 500 gallons of honey, that's a lot.
That's
that's a lot of bees. Yeah, so if you want to sell some excess out of the hive in your backyard, you just go ahead.
That's fantastic.
You know what there is lots of regulations on? And I had a question about this just this morning.
Okay.
Dog treats.
You
have to go through the Illinois Department of Ag, and it has a whole separate list of regulations.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting, right? But I will tell you, most farmers markets just kind of look the other way, because if you're making cupcakes for people, why couldn't you make biscuits for dogs? Seriously.
But
right? I shouldn't have
need
said that
you
out loud.
I need you not to make those at the same time.
Well, yeah, unless they have super
It just
similar
seems
ingredients.
wrong.
Yeah,
wrong. Please don't. Do we have any final questions? Please raise your hand. Or this is your last opportunity to type any questions you have in the Q&A section. Okay, well, it looks like you all have been very thorough. We thank you. Many thanks to
you bet.
Large applause.
Thank you all. And like I said, you can contact me directly. And Rebecca, what I'm going to do when I get off is I'm going to add my logo and contact info and send you another set of PDF slides.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, that's
all right.
Thank you all. Remember that you'll get a follow-up email with the survey about today's training. Please share your feedback, because that allows us to know what relevant training we can provide you that really makes a difference for your business. If you haven't already signed up to become a client with us at the Illinois SBDC at Build Bronzeville, you can do that through the same way that you signed up to attend this training. Thank you again for your time and attention, and continue to have a great day and week.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.